أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين وعدد يا رسول الله وعدد يا سلام وعدد الدستور ويا شاء الله فاز أحسن شاء محمد طريقتنا الصحبة والخير في الجمعية Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem ahir zaman özelliklerinden, işaretlerinden
Our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, mentioned the signs of the end of times.
bahsederken icab-ı kulli zî ra'in bi ra'yih. Her insan kendi düşündüğünü beğenir.
And when our beloved Prophet, peace be upon him, mentioned and spoke about the signs of the end of times, he described that in the end of times there will come a time when people will only like their own thoughts and their only way, and they will only like their own way of thinking.
Başkasınınkini beğenmezler.
And they will not like or respect or appreciate the thoughts of others or the way others think.
Bu zamanı söylemiş Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem.
And this description of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, perfectly applies to the time we now live in, where people are so convinced of their own way of thinking and do not accept other people's way of thinking.
Herkes kendi bildiğini zanneder ki o doğru olan odur.
Everyone thinks that what he knows is the only truth.
Başkasınınki yanlıştır.
And people think in general that what others think or how others see things or understand things is wrong.
Bana göre böyle bu
People say, based on my opinion, things should be like this.
doğru olan budur deyip
And they say, according to me, the right way is this way, or what I think is correct.
onu tutturup gider.
And then they try to enforce their own thoughts and their own understanding.
O olmaz.
But this is not the good way.
Çünkü yanlışsa insan yanlışı bilmesi lazım.
But what if the way you think, your understanding or opinion is wrong? One needs to become aware of being wrong.
Yanlışı bilmek iyidir.
And it is important to know one's own shortcomings and to also know when one is not correct or one is wrong.
Çünkü yanlış bilirsen düzeltirsin.
Because when you know about your own shortcomings and when you know when you are wrong, then you can correct that.
Yok, sen kendi kafana göre yanlışı doğru zannedersen
However, if you are stubborn and insist on thinking that what you know, even though it is wrong and even though it is incorrect, if you think and pretend it to be right,
bir fayda etmez sana.
then you will be not benefiting from it.
Fayda değil, çoğu zaman bazında zarar olur insana.
Instead, many times you will rather be harming and damaging yourself.
Bu dünya işleri için böyledir.
And this applies to the general situation when it comes to worldly affairs, that people are self-convinced of their own way of thinking.
Ahiretli işleri için daha zordur.
And however, this way of self-conviction is dangerous when it comes to the affairs of the hereafter.
Sen kendi kafana göre bir mesele olur. Bu
So assuming that there is a spiritual or religious matter,
böyle olur. O yapması münasiptir.
and then in the face of this spiritual or religious matter you say, this should be done like that.
O münasip dediği şey fetvadır demek.
But the moment you make a recommendation on a religious or a spiritual matter, you have put yourself into a situation of making a fatwa.
Sen kendi kendine fetva verirsin.
And by expressing your opinion in that regard, you're making a fatwa by yourself.
Fetva vermek olmaz.
But you are in no position to make a fatwa.
Din işlerinde bilmediğin şeyleri kendi kafana göre
You cannot make judgments in spiritual and religious matters and express recommendations and make a fatwa.
fetva verirsen günaha girersin.
If you give recommendations, make a fatwa in religious or spiritual matters without having authorization or knowledge in that matter, then you are in fact committing a sin.
Başkasının işine de karışırsan
Because by that you're interfering into the affairs of others,
daha beter.
and that is even worse when you interfere when you interfere with the affairs of others.
Günaha girmiş olursun. Onun için bildiğin şeyi, emin olduğun şeyi, bunu duyduk, bunu böyle şey yapıyor. Gene de
You may speak about matters, you must be very careful about what you say. You may say something about something you know with certainty, but even then you need to be careful.
siz bu şeyi sorun dersin.
And when it's spiritual and religious matters, you should always advise people to seek advice and recommendations.
Çünkü fetva vermek sırf halin değil,
Rather than giving a recommendation, a fatwa yourself, you should advise people to have them seek an advice.
hem alim olması lazım, hem fetva sahibi olması lazım ki
Because in order to give a recommendation or to make a fatwa, one not only needs to be a true scholar, but also one needs to have the authorization of giving a fatwa.
fetvayı versin, ona mesuliyetini o taşır.
Because when you give a fatwa, you carry responsibility for the actions of that person.
Yok, herkes daha elif mertekten anlamayan insan kalkıp da kendi kafasına göre fetvalar verir.
But now we see that people who even don't know the alphabet think of themselves to be scholars and give recommendations here and there and make fatwas by doing so.
Dünya işte hadi anladık, yanlış olabilir. Yani sen reyin, düşüncen yanlış olabilir. Zararı buradadır.
And this happens both in worldly affairs and spiritual religious affairs. When it's about a worldly matter and you give an advice about something, either you know about something or you think that you are right, but it turns out that you were wrong, then that damage only will apply to this world.
Ahiret için bir şey yok ama
And you will not have done a harm to hereafter.
ahiret için bir şeyler fetva verirsen o vakit büyük vebal alırsın.
However, if you make a fatwa on spiritual and religious matters, then you are causing damage, which applies to the hereafter, which is going to be a great burden on you.
Büyük ceza alabilir
And it may even turn into a great punishment for you
ahirette.
in the hereafter.
Çünkü Allah Azze ve Celle'nin Peygamber Efendimiz sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem'in dediğinin dışında olursa
Because while you say something and make a fatwa on a matter, it may happen that you may actually say things which are in contradiction to what Allah Almighty or our beloved Prophet, peace be upon him, says.
o fetva ona vebal olur.
And if you truly do so and say something that is in opposition, knowingly or unknowingly, then you have put on a great burden for which you will be held accountable.
Vebalda cezaya müstahak olur insan.
And if you say something which stands in opposition and contradicts, then you do not only have put on a responsibility, that burden, but you have become worthy of Allah Almighty's punishment in the hereafter.
Onun için hiç yoktan kendi kendine günaha girme,
Therefore, protect yourselves from committing sins out of nothingness by making fatwas.
kendine zarar verme.
Don't harm yourself by making fatwas.
Bilirse bilirim, bilmem demek de güzeldir.
When you know something about a matter, you may know about that, but when you have no knowledge about something, you should openly admit that I don't know.
Bilmediğin şey sen bilmezsin, başkası bilir.
And there may be things which you do not have any knowledge about, and there are others who are knowledgeable about that matter.
Başkası onun fetvasını verir, onun
And people may then seek the advice of those people who have knowledge in that matter and get the fatwa from them who have authorization to give that fatwa.
nedir doğru, nedir kötü olan şeyi anlatır. Ama sen o şeyi kesmiş olursun, sen kendi fetva verirsen.
However, the moment you give a fatwa on a matter which you have no knowledge about, or where you are unknowingly or unknowingly wrong in what you think, then you're preventing people from actually seeking the advice of the true scholars and actually seeking the true answer or the right recommendation for their matter.
O insana artık sormaya gerek yok der, nasıl olsa o.
Because people will then trust what you say and they will say, there's no need for me to seek any other advice.
Fetvayı vermiştir ve o gerekmez. Ama sen bilmem desen, ben bilmiyorum, benim
However, if you simply said, I don't know,
ilmim bu kadar yok, bu kadar şeyi,
I don't have any knowledge on that matter,
haberim yok bu meseleden.
or I have not been informed about that,
Sen git müftülere,
rather go and seek the advice and the recommendations of true scholars, of muftis,
sor dersen, o vakit adam ya hanım kim olursa
and by doing so you encourage them to seek advice. And this applies to both men and women. They need to seek advice.
hakikati öğrenmiş olur.
And by thus searching that knowledge, they will learn about the truth.
Seni de vebaldan kurtarmış olur.
So we will have encouraged them to search the truth, and you will have saved yourselves from burdening yourself with an accountability and a responsibility which would turn for you into a punishment.
Allah nefsimize uydurmasın.
May Allah Almighty protect us from succumbing to our egos.
Nefis zanneder ki her şeyi bilirim ya
The ego always thinks that it knows everything.
bilmem dese, bilmem demek kötü bir şey zanneder
And the ego thinks it is a bad thing to say, I don't know.
nefis. Halbuki o kötü bir şey değil.
But it is not a bad thing to admit that you don't have knowledge or you don't know about something.
Bildiğini söyle, bilmediğini söyleme.
If you know something with certainty, you may say that, but you should refrain from saying things which you have no knowledge about. Just say, I don't know.
Başkasına hem sen günaha girersin,
Because if you say things about which you do not have any knowledge about, then you will put yourself into the danger of having committed a sin.
hem başkasını doğru yoldan çıkarmış olursun.
And moreover, you may have then been the cause for a person to get off the right track.
Allah muhafaza etsin.
May Allah Almighty protect us from doing so.
Ve minallahu tevfik. El Fatiha.